Our NBC Banned Book Club, in partnership with the American Library Association, has now been around for a full year, and the New York Times best-selling book, Hood Feminism, Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot, seemed like a very smart selection to start off year two.
Yeah, we're real red.
Are we though? We got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah. Chicago-based author Mikki Kendall received tremendous praise and some pushback for her work, but that doesn't seem to be holding her down at all. Welcome, Mikki.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's start with the title here, Hood Feminism.
Great title.
Yeah. Did you originate that term?
Yes.
You did. Okay.
Yes.
And what does it encompass for you?
So hood feminism for me is the lived feminism of low-income women, women in the community, the women who really get the work done, not necessarily the women whose faces show up on your television channel, right? Growing up, it was always those women who were making sure kids had their lunch, that schools were safe, that school board meetings happened and money was allocated. All of those community-based things to make sure community runs is hood feminism.
The literal neighborhood feminism at that level. So a lot of this book is about blind spots that mainstream feminism or white feminism has. What can you just go through some of those areas where you think white women are not necessarily seeing or not including in their feminist movement?
So one of the things, obviously, is gun violence and police brutality. This is not to say that no white women experience it, but statistically, they are not at the most risk. When we are talking about hunger or housing or racism, we're not talking about things that white women are as likely to experience. And if they're the face of feminism, they're not going to address those very basic issues because those aren't issues they've ever necessarily experienced. And so I wanted to talk about the things that all women face, not just the things that some women face.
I loved this quote in particular. I know we can come to a place where we embrace differences instead of pretending that freedom comes from erasing them. How have people taken that and what you've taught in this book to a new level? How have you seen your readers respond?
So it's been really interesting. I have sort of a split. I've had a lot of mother-daughter combos reading the book.
Makes sense.
Where it's been like a young white woman has taken this book back to her mom, who might be a first or second wave sort of leaning feminist, and then they have a whole discussion going about it. But we also have seen a lot of white women kind of go, I never thought about this stuff, right? Not that they necessarily are anti the book, but they're, reaching out or they're commenting and they're saying, I've never had to think about this. I've never thought about the fact that if race and class are intertwined, that means that those Black kids who aren't necessarily getting into better colleges aren't getting access to decent K through 12, and their moms are fighting for that and not necessarily focused on what I think their mom should be focused on, because basics aren't being met.
So this book was banned in Texas.
Ban, challenge.
And challenge in Florida. And where does it stand now?
School districts in Florida had pulled it for review.
Okay.
That was last year.
And what was the reason? Do you get a reason? They don't send you an email.
They don't send.
Dear Mikki.
No.
No.
At one point, I know that it was pulled for nudity.
Nudity.
But it's there's no nudity.
Nudity. I don't know.
The only thing nude are the pages because there's no
I don't know.
pictures.
Should I scan it again for pictures?
There are no pictures.
This is not a
in that
graphic
one.
novel.
No. And so what's really interesting is that, so I have a graphic novel, Amazon's Abolitionist and Activist. Some of the school districts will pull this book, but they still allow that book.
Do you have nudity in that book?
I don't have nudity in that book, but I do mention racism and sexual assault and a whole bunch of the same history they're trying to ban from other books.
Right.
They're letting it in that book. So this is not a logical thing when we're talking about book bans. I know that the argument is always we're protecting kids. They're not reading the book, so they can't be protecting kids if they don't know what's in the books in the first place.
Yeah. What do you want white women to take away from this book, and how do we move forward in a positive way as feminists together?
We are all at risk. White women's votes carry a lot of weight, and currently, unfortunately, they are making things like book bans possible. We're seeing this come out right now in Alabama, right? That IBS case, if you go back and you look, it was something like 80% of white women voted Republican. You are not just putting yourself at risk, you're putting us all at risk. And if you want to be part of the all, the sisterhood, you're going to have to vote like you care about the future of not just yourself, but of everyone else. Even if you don't have the same concerns right now, it's very clear you will have the same concern soon.
Wow.
Well, I think men can learn from this too and vote in the same way.
Please do.
Mikki,
Yes, we will.
Thank you
you
so
so
much.
much.